Thank you, sir. The very first thing I would do would be to sit down with my client and come up with a list of witnesses to interview, to offer.
I don't want to get in your attorney-client privilege
Okay.
piece, but I bet you've done that already, right?
No, I haven't.
Haven't had a chance to do that with her?
So
No.
I've had the case for 2.5 weeks. We have not arranged for witness interviews.
Not witness interviews, but just with respect to talking with her about what time. Okay.
No, we've talked, but I need to get people into the office. I need to set up interviews.
All right.
We need to work on the case. We need to go through the documents and prepare responses.
Did you just hear that? That's not a witness. That's not an opponent. That is her own attorney sitting before a congressional ethics committee, admitting on the record that he hasn't interviewed witnesses, that he hasn't prepared a real defense. And this is a summary judgment motion. This isn't a scheduling call. This isn't a preliminary hearing. This is the hearing that could end her congressional career. And her lawyer just said, none of that has been done. Not really. Let's back up. Because this didn't come out of nowhere, Representative Sheila Sherfilas McCormick is currently facing a House Ethics Committee investigation. The charges involve alleged violations of FEC rules, campaign finance laws. Specifically, the committee staff is claiming that her company, Trinity Health Care Services, illegally funneled money into her campaign, that she was taking money from Trinity and using it for her campaign. Improperly. Those are serious allegations, the kind that, if proven, can end a political career entirely. So, what does her team do? They hire a new attorney with 2.5 weeks to go before this hearing. And watch what happened when the committee actually pressed him on what he'd done with that time.
None of that has been done. Not really.
All right,
We did our best in 2 or 3 hours to put something together, but she deserves a real response to this motion, and in order to do that, it's going to take time.
Okay, and then the documents that you did attach to the motion you filed, I think these are the documents you attached. Can you tell me briefly what the relevance? You got an affidavit. I saw a notice of a settlement agreement, if I recall correctly. There was a document on there that was too small to read for an old eyes like mine. What are the points that are raised in those documents that would be relevant to the motion to dismiss?
To the summary judgment motion.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. First, you have an affidavit in there that is contradicting evidence that staff was relying on in their summary judgment motion, saying that that did not happen. I was a witness to that, and I saw it differently. So that is a conflict in
What is the that?
the specific disagreements.
I mean, it doesn't have to be all the way in the weeds, but give me a general sense of what the disagreement is.
Disagreements about why money was moved, for example, from one account into another, how loans were made, who was responsible for directing those transfers of money. You have staff has a witness who's claiming that the Congresswoman purposely put money into an account and then withdrew it in violation of FEC rules and regulations. And my understanding is the witness is going to say that that's not what happened. The congressman never directed that for it to happen that way. It was done by another individual.
Is that the affidavit, or is that?
That's the affidavit. Okay. I mean, I mean, to be honest, this is part of this is just having the case for 2.5, 3 weeks.
I'm not trying to pick it apart. I'm just trying to figure out what the documents were and the relevance of those to the motion.
Yeah, the other things that we attached was the fact that many of the complaints that have been alleged by staff were also investigated by the FEC. And they had to do with the fact that the Congresswoman's, for example, the most recent ones, maybe her first successful election, and having volunteers handle things like financial reports and not having a professional compliance team on board. So lots and lots of different mistakes were made, and a lot of those mistakes are reflected as complaints of the violations. The information...
That's the settlement agreement, the FEC settlement?
There was a settlement agreement where the FEC referred the Congresswoman to alternative dispute resolution, indicated that she needed to hire professional compliance staff in the future, that somebody had to undergo remedial training on the necessity to file certain financial disclosures, all of which has been done.
Okay, and then that document that you have there is some kind of a... It's too small for me to read, but it was like a spreadsheet. What is that?
It's huge. That's the most important document, and that's a document that unfortunately touches upon the criminal case, which is one of the reasons why it's troublesome for me to get into it. But one of the major allegations that staff has made is that Trinity Health Care Services funneled money illegally into the Congresswoman's campaign, and that the Congresswoman was just taking money from Trinity and using it for her campaign. Nothing could be further from the truth. One of the things that we filed so that the committee has it in front of them is the fact that she was entitled to a certain percentage of profits of Trinity, and the money that she was receiving from Trinity was not money that Trinity was using to finance her campaign. It was money that was legally obligated to be paid to her as part of the profit-sharing agreement, and those are the documents that were presented.
And I know I appreciate the indulgence of the chair. Could I ask counsel for the committee to respond to what they've heard? By all means.
I think much of what Representative Shervilles-McCormick's counsel has raised goes towards the motion to summary judgment, and we're happy to address it in that context. To the extent that he is raising a new motion seeking some additional time, a continuance of a couple weeks, while that is procedurally improper, we're not objecting to him raising that now. And we wouldn't object in theory to the idea of a little more time, but we would raise some concerns about that concept. It's a little unrealistic given the realities of the House calendar and scheduling things. And then the blackout period that's been referenced would start in, I believe, around June 24th, 60 days prior to an election in which the respondent is a candidate. The process that we're undergoing is more than just one day. This involves a adjudicatory hearing at this time, but provides for a sanctions hearing to follow, and then likely a resolution for the entire House to consider. I think that the reason why we are here now at this time is because this is what puts the House on track to consider this in a timely manner before that blackout period begins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Gentleman yields back.
So let's break down what just happened in that room. Her attorney laid out 3 separate lines of defense. First, the money transfers. He says the Congresswoman didn't direct the movement of funds, that another individual was responsible. And he has an affidavit from a witness who says so. That's potentially significant. If it's true, if the affidavit holds up, if that witness is credible. But here's the problem. They just attached this affidavit in the last few days. After 2 or 3 hours of preparation, this isn't a polished defense. This is a team scrambling to catch up. Second, the FEC settlement. Her attorney referenced a prior FEC investigation into her early campaigns. He says many of the same complaints were already investigated. That the FEC referred the case to alternative dispute resolution. That they settled. That she hired compliance staff. That the issues were addressed. That sounds like mitigating history. But mitigating history isn't the same as not having done it. And the committee's staff isn't bound by what the FEC chose to settle. Third, and this is the big one, Trinity Healthcare. The staff's core allegation is that Trinity illegally funneled money into her campaign. Her attorney says that's completely wrong. He says the money she received from Trinity was legally owed to her, a profit-sharing arrangement. money that was contractually obligated to be paid to her, not campaign contributions. That's the document that was too small to read on screen. That massive spreadsheet. And here's the thing. If that's true, it's actually a meaningful defense, but this is where it gets complicated. Her attorney said those documents, the ones making that central argument, they touch upon the criminal case, there is a parallel criminal matter, which means this isn't just an ethics case, this is connected to a criminal investigation. And her attorney is trying to defend her in an ethics proceeding while being careful not to say something that blows up the criminal side. That is an extraordinarily difficult position to be in, with 2 weeks of prep and 2 hours of document review. Here is where things stand. The committee counsel made it very clear there is a deadline, June 24th. That's when the blackout period begins, 60 days before an election. And Sheila Sherfilis McCormick is on the ballot. The process doesn't end with this hearing. There's still a sanctions hearing. Then a full House resolution. The committee needs time to complete all of that before June 24th, which means any delay her attorney gets, any continuance, it shrinks the window. It compresses the timeline. It may not even be possible given the House calendar. Her attorney asked for more time. Committee counsel said in theory they won't object, but in reality the math may not work. And this is where everything changed. Because regardless of whether she gets more time, regardless of whether her defenses hold up, her own attorney already said the words that will follow this case. None of that has been done. Not really. That is now part of the official record, whatever happens next. That admission is already there. If you want to stay ahead of what's actually happening inside these congressional hearings, the moments that don't make the headlines, hit subscribe. New videos going up every week. Drop a comment below. Do you think her defense holds up?